Maya sat on the cold park bench and counted her money one more time. $5. That was it. That was everything she had left in this world. She stuffed the crumpled bills back into her pocket and pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders. The October wind was getting colder and the sun was already starting to set. 3 weeks ago she had a job. Nothing fancy, just waiting tables at a little diner on 4th Street. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to cover her tiny studio apartment and put food in her stomach. Then the diner closed down. No warning. The owner just put up a sign one morning that said they were done. Maya remembered standing there on the sidewalk staring at that sign, feeling her whole world crumble. She tried to find another job right away. She really did. She filled out applications everywhere, fast food places, grocery stores, gas stations, anywhere that was hiring. But nobody called back. The bills kept coming, though. Rent was due, then past due. Her landlord wasn't a bad guy, but he had bills too. He gave her 2 weeks to catch up. She couldn't. 2 days ago, she came back to find her stuff in garbage bags on the sidewalk and a new lock on the door. For a while, she slept in her car. It wasn't comfortable, but at least it was shelter. At least it was hers. But then the repo man came. She'd missed 3 payments. She watched them tow it away, taking the last piece of independence she had. Now she had a duffel bag with some clothes, a toothbrush, a blanket, and $5 to her name. Maya was only 23, but she felt about 100 years old right now. She'd been on her own since she was 18. Before that, she grew up in foster care. Her mother had left her at a fire station when she was 3 days old. Just left her there in a car seat with a note that said, "I'm sorry. Please take care of her." Maya never knew who her mother was or why she couldn't keep her. She bounced around from house to house growing up. Some families were nice. Some weren't. None of them kept her for long. When she turned 18, the state was done with her. They gave her a small check, some paperwork, and basically said good luck. She'd been figuring it out on her own ever since. Most days, Maya was tough. She had to be. Life had taught her that nobody was coming to save her, so she'd better save herself. But sitting on that bench, watching families walk by with their kids, watching people head home to warm houses and hot dinners, she felt something crack inside her chest. She was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being alone. Tired of pretending everything was okay when nothing was okay. A little girl ran past her chasing a balloon. She was maybe 4 or 5, laughing like it was the best day of her life. Her dad caught up to her and scooped her up, throwing her in the air while she squealed with joy. Maya watched them and felt tears burn behind her eyes. She wondered what that felt like. To have someone who loved you like that. To have a person who would catch you when you fell. She wiped her eyes quickly and stood up. Feeling sorry for herself wasn't going to help anything. She needed to get to the shelter before all the beds filled up. It was about 2 miles away across town. She'd walked it before. The shelter was always crowded, always loud, but it was warm and they'd give her a meal. It was better than sleeping on the street. Maya grabbed her duffel bag and started walking. The streets were busy with people heading home from work. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to go, somewhere they belonged. She felt invisible, like a ghost drifting through a world that had no place for her. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning when she'd found half a bagel in a coffee shop trash can. She wasn't proud of that. But hunger has a way of killing pride pretty quickly. She passed a pizza place and the smell made her mouth water. $5 could buy her a slice and a soda. But if she spent that money, she'd have nothing. 0. The thought terrified her more than the hunger did. She decided to get a cup of coffee instead. At least it would warm her up and she could sit inside for a little while. There was a coffee shop on the corner, one of those cheap places that didn't care if you sat there for hours. She went in and ordered the smallest size they had, $2. She wrapped both hands around the paper cup and found a seat by the window. The coffee was weak and bitter, but it was hot. She sipped it slowly, trying to make it last. Around her, people typed on laptops and chatted with friends. A couple in the corner was laughing about something. A student was studying with headphones on. Normal life. The kind of life Maya used to think she'd have someday. She used to have dreams back when she was younger. She wanted to go to college. Maybe study teaching or social work, something where she could help kids like her, kids who didn't have anyone. But college cost money she didn't have. And now sitting here with $3 left and nowhere to sleep, those dreams felt like they belonged to a different person. A person who still believed good things could happen. The coffee was gone too soon. She couldn't sit there without ordering something else, and she needed to save her last $3. Maya stood up, threw away her cup, and headed back out into the cold. The sun had set completely now. The streetlights were coming on. She pulled her hood up and started walking toward the shelter again. She took a shortcut through an alley she'd used before. It cut off about half a mile of walking. The alley was dark and smelled like garbage, but it was empty. At least she thought it was empty. She was about halfway through when she heard something that made her stop dead in her tracks. It was a sound that didn't belong there, a sound that made her heart skip a beat. At first she thought maybe she was imagining it. The wind maybe, or a cat. But then she heard it again, clearer this time, and there was no mistaking what it was. It was a baby crying. Maya stood frozen, listening. The cry was weak, like whoever was making it didn't have much strength left. It was coming from somewhere to her right near the dumpsters. Every instinct told her to keep walking. This wasn't her problem. She had enough problems of her own. Getting involved in someone else's mess was the last thing she needed. But the crying continued. Weak and desperate and heartbreaking, Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she walked toward the sound, even though a voice in her head was screaming at her to run the other way. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight, sweeping it across the alley. That's when she saw it. Next to the dumpster, partially hidden behind some trash bags, was a cardboard box. And inside that box, wrapped in a dirty blanket, was a tiny baby. The baby was so small, so fragile, and even in the dim light, Maya could see that something was terribly wrong. The baby's lips were turning blue. Its skin looked almost gray. The crying was getting weaker. Maya dropped her duffel bag and ran to the box. She fell to her knees and carefully picked up the baby, blanket and all. The baby was ice cold. Dangerously cold. Maya had never held a baby before in her life, but she knew this was bad. This was really, really bad. Her hands were shaking as she unzipped her jacket and pulled the baby close to her chest, trying to share her body heat. She zipped the jacket back up with the baby inside, holding it against her heart. The baby was barely moving now. The crying had almost stopped. Maya started running. Maya ran faster than she'd ever run in her life. The baby was pressed against her chest under her jacket, so cold and still that it terrified her. She could feel the tiny heartbeat, weak and fluttery like a bird. She didn't know much about babies, but she knew this one was dying. The convenience store on the corner had its lights on. Maya burst through the door so hard the bell nearly fell off. The clerk behind the counter was a middle-aged man reading a magazine. He looked up, annoyed at first, then his expression changed when he saw her face. "Call 911. Maya screamed. "Wait, please! There's a baby! Call 911 right now!" The man's eyes went wide. He grabbed the phone and started dialing while Maya carefully unzipped her jacket a little to check on the baby. Those tiny lips were still blue. The eyes were closed. Maya started crying without even realizing it. "There's a baby," she heard the clerk saying into the phone. "Lady came in with a baby. Says it's an emergency. Yeah, she's here now. Corner of 5th and Madison. Please hurry." Maya sank down onto the floor, still holding the baby close. She was rocking back and forth, whispering things she didn't even know she knew. "It's okay. You're okay now. I've got you. Please be okay, please." She kept rubbing the baby's back through the blanket, trying to warm it up, trying to will life back into that tiny body. The clerk came around the counter. "They're on their way." "What happened? Where'd you find it?" "In the alley," Maya said, her voice shaking. "In a box by the dumpster. Someone left it there. It's so cold. Why would anyone do this?" The clerk shook his head. His face had gone pale. "That's sick. That's just sick. Here." He disappeared into the back and came out with a small space heater, plugging it in next to where Maya sat. "Put your back to this. Might help." Maya nodded and shifted closer to the warmth. Minutes felt like hours. She kept checking the baby, feeling for that heartbeat, praying it was still there. The baby wasn't crying anymore. That scared her more than anything. Shouldn't babies cry? Wasn't silence worse? Finally, she heard sirens. The most beautiful sound in the world. The ambulance pulled up outside and 2 paramedics rushed in with a bag full of equipment. A woman with kind eyes kneeled down next to Maya. "I'm Lisa, I'm a paramedic. Can you tell me what happened?" Maya explained as quickly as she could while Lisa carefully took the baby from her arms. The other paramedic, a younger guy, was already getting things ready. They laid the baby on a blanket on the floor and Lisa started checking vitals. Body temperature is way too low, Lisa said. We need to get her to the hospital now. Her. The baby was a girl. Lisa looked up at Maya. You probably saved her life. A few more minutes out there and we'd be having a different conversation. They wrapped the baby in special warming blankets and put her on a tiny stretcher. Maya stood up feeling dizzy and lost. The paramedics were moving fast, doing their job with quick efficiency. She watched them load the tiny stretcher into the ambulance. Wait, Maya called out. Is she going to be okay? Lisa paused at the ambulance door. We're going to do everything we can. Are you coming with us? Maya looked down at herself. Her jacket was dirty. Her hands were shaking. She had $3 in her pocket and nowhere to sleep tonight. What good would she be at a hospital? But something in her chest pulled tight when she thought about that baby being alone. Yes, she said. I'm coming. She climbed into the ambulance and they took off, sirens wailing. Inside, Lisa worked on the baby with calm focus. She had an oxygen mask, IV lines, monitors beeping. Maya sat on the side bench trying to stay out of the way, watching that tiny chest rise and fall. At the hospital, everything happened fast. They wheeled the baby into the emergency room and suddenly there were doctors and nurses everywhere. Someone guided Maya to a waiting area and told her to sit. Then the police showed up. 2 officers, a woman and a man, sat down with her. The woman pulled out a notebook. I'm Officer Chen. This is Officer Rodriguez. We need to ask you some questions about how you found the baby. Maya's stomach dropped. She'd been so focused on saving the baby that she hadn't thought about this part, about how it might look. She was homeless. She was dirty. She'd been found in an alley with an abandoned baby. Her hand started shaking again. I didn't hurt her, Maya said quickly. I found her. I swear I just found her. Officer Chen's face softened. We're not accusing you of anything. We just need to know what happened. Start from the beginning. Maya told them everything. About walking through the alley. About hearing the crying. About finding the box. Her voice kept breaking and she had to stop several times to wipe her eyes. The officers listened without interrupting. When she finished, Officer Rodriguez nodded. The store has security cameras. We'll check the footage, but I believe you. You did the right thing. Is she going to be okay? Maya asked. The baby? Doctors are with her now, Officer Chen said. You got her here in time. That's what matters. They asked a few more questions. Where Maya lived. Her phone number. She had to admit she didn't have an address right now, that she was on her way to the shelter. She saw something flash across their faces. Pity, maybe. Or respect. She couldn't tell. Here's my card, Officer Rodriguez said, handing it to her. If you remember anything else, call me. And hey, what you did tonight? That took guts. Most people would have kept walking. After the police left, Maya sat in the waiting room alone. The plastic chair was uncomfortable, but she didn't care. She was exhausted in a way that went deeper than just being tired. It was like everything that had happened in the past few weeks finally caught up with her all at once. A nurse came out after about an hour. Are you the one who brought in the baby? Maya jumped up. Yes, is she okay? The nurse smiled. She's stable. Still critical, but stable. You got her here just in time. The doctor said another hour in that cold and we would have lost her. Maya felt her knees go weak. She sat back down hard. Can I see her? Not right now. She's in the NICU, but maybe tomorrow if you come back. Tomorrow. Maya nodded, even though she had no idea where she'd be tomorrow or how she'd get back here. The hospital was miles from the shelter. She walked out into the night. It was late now, past 11. The shelter would have locked its doors hours ago. All the beds would be full. Maya stood on the sidewalk and realized she had nowhere to go. She'd spent her last $3 on a candy bar from the hospital vending machine without thinking. She had nothing. Again. But somehow, standing there in the cold, she didn't feel as empty as she had sitting on that park bench. She'd saved a life tonight. That had to mean something. That had to count for something. Maya found a bench near the hospital entrance and sat down. She'd sleep here tonight. She'd figure out tomorrow when tomorrow came. She pulled her thin jacket tight and closed her eyes. And the last thing she thought about before drifting off was that tiny baby with blue lips, and how sometimes the smallest actions can change everything. Maya woke up to someone shaking her shoulder. She opened her eyes and saw a security guard standing over her. Her whole body ached from sleeping on the bench. The morning sun was just coming up. You can't sleep here, the guard said, but his voice wasn't mean. Hospital policy. I'm sorry, Maya said, grabbing her duffel bag. I'm leaving. She stood up stiffly and started walking. She had no idea where she was going. The shelter didn't open until 7 at night. It was barely 6 in the morning. She had no money for food. No money for anything. She found herself walking back toward the park where this had all started yesterday. On the way, she passed a coffee shop. Through the window, she saw the TV was on. The morning news was playing. Maya was about to keep walking when something on the screen caught her eye. It was the alley. Her alley! The one where she'd found the baby. She pushed open the door and moved closer to the TV. The sound was low, but she could hear the reporter talking about an abandoned baby found last night. Then her heart nearly stopped. They were showing security camera footage from the convenience store. There she was, running in with the baby, falling to the floor. The clerk calling 911. The woman who found the infant wishes to remain anonymous, the reporter was saying, but police are calling her a hero. The baby is in critical but stable condition this morning, and doctors say if she'd been out in that alley much longer she wouldn't have survived. Maya stood frozen, staring at the screen. Someone behind her said, "That's terrible. Who would leave a baby like that?" Someone else said, "Thank God that woman found her." She slipped back outside before anyone could recognize her. Her hands were shaking again. She'd never been on TV before. Never been called a hero. The word felt too big for her. Heroes were other people. Important people. Not girls sleeping on benches with nowhere to go. She spent the day walking around, trying to stay warm. She went to the library when it opened because it was free and warm and no one bothered you there. She found a corner and pretended to read a book, but mostly she just sat there thinking about the baby, wondering if she was okay, wondering who her mother was and why she'd left her like that. Around noon, Maya's stomach was growling so loud it was embarrassing. She hadn't eaten in over a day. She left the library and walked to a church she knew sometimes gave out sandwiches. They were just setting up when she got there. The woman handing out food looked at her carefully. "Wait, were you on the news this morning? The one who saved the baby?" Maya froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." But the woman was already calling to the others. "It's her. It's the girl from the news." Suddenly people were crowding around her, asking questions, wanting to shake her hand. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. This was too much attention. "Too many eyes on her, please," she said. "I just want a sandwich." The woman who'd recognized her pressed a bag into her hands. "Take 2. Take 3. What you did was amazing. Just amazing." Maya took the food and practically ran out of there. She found a quiet spot in the park and ate both sandwiches. They were the best things she'd ever tasted. While she ate, she thought about going back to the hospital to check on the baby. But what if more people recognized her? What if they asked her questions she didn't want to answer? She was still debating this when her phone buzzed. That was strange. Nobody ever called her. She pulled it out and saw it was Officer Rodriguez. "Hello?" "Maya, hi. It's Officer Rodriguez. Listen, I wanted to give you an update. We found the baby's mother." Maya's heart jumped. "Is she okay?" "The mother? She's a kid herself, 16, got pregnant and was too scared to tell anyone. She's cooperating with us now. But there's something else you should know. The story made the local news this morning." "I saw," Maya said quietly. "Well, it's getting a lot of attention. People want to know who you are. There's already a GoFundMe page someone set up for you. Last I checked, it was up to $10,000. Maya almost dropped her phone. "What? That's not possible." "It's true. And there's more. I've gotten calls from local businesses asking how to reach you. Job offers. One guy owns an apartment building, says he wants to help." "Maya, people are really moved by what you did." She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. $10,000? Job offers? This had to be some kind of mistake. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "I know it's overwhelming," Officer Rodriguez said gently, "but you should come down to the station. I can give you the information, help you figure out what to do next." And the hospital called. "The baby's doing better. They're calling her Grace for now. The nurses named her. They said you could visit if you want." Grace, the baby, had a name now. Maya felt tears running down her face. "I'll come to the station," she managed to say. An hour later, she was sitting in Officer Rodriguez's office looking at a laptop screen. The GoFundMe page was real. The number kept going up while she watched. 15,000 now. There were hundreds of comments from strangers. "This woman deserves everything." "So brave." This restored my faith in humanity. Someone find her and help her. I don't understand, Maya whispered. Why do they care? Officer Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. Because what you did was pure. You had nothing. You were struggling yourself, but you still stopped to help. In a world where people usually look the other way, you ran toward trouble. That means something to people. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. These are the businesses that called. This one's a bookstore. Owner says she needs help and she's got a small apartment above the shop she'll rent to you cheap. This one's a restaurant offering kitchen work. This one's a grocery store. Take your pick. Maya stared at the list. Yesterday she couldn't get anyone to call her back. Today she had choices. It felt like a dream. Like any second she'd wake up on that bench and it would all disappear. What about Grace? She asked. Can I really see her? Called the hospital before you got here. They're expecting you. The NICU was quiet and dimmed. A nurse led Maya to a small room where an incubator sat with monitors all around it. And there, tiny and pink and breathing, was Grace. She was so small, so perfect. Maya's hands were shaking as she pressed them against the glass. You can touch her if you want, the nurse said softly. Just wash your hands first. Maya washed her hands 3 times to make sure they were clean enough. Then she reached into the incubator and gently touched Grace's hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around her pinky. It was the smallest, strongest feeling in the world. Hey there, Grace, Maya whispered. Remember me? I'm the one who found you. You're going to be okay. You're going to be just fine. She stayed for an hour just watching Grace breathe. The nurse told her about the baby's progress, how her temperature was back to normal, how she was eating now, how strong she was fighting. She's a miracle, the nurse said, thanks to you. When Maya finally left the hospital, it was getting dark. She pulled out the paper Officer Rodriguez had given her and looked at the bookstore address. It wasn't far. She could walk there. The bookstore was small and cozy, wedged between a coffee shop and a flower shop. Through the window, Maya could see rows of books and a woman arranging a display. She took a deep breath and went inside. The bell over the door chimed. The woman looked up and smiled. She was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and kind eyes behind glasses. Can I help you? I'm Maya. Officer Rodriguez said you called about a job. The woman's face lit up. Oh, yes. You're the one from the news. Come in, come in. I'm Patricia. I've been hoping you'd show up. They talked for an hour. Patricia explained that her last employee had moved away and she'd been running the shop alone. It was too much for her. She needed someone to help with customers, stocking shelves, organizing inventory. The apartment upstairs was small but clean. 1 room, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom. It was more than Maya had dreamed of. The pay isn't much to start, Patricia said apologetically. But you'd have the apartment and you can eat lunch here. I always make too much. What do you say? Maya felt tears coming again. She'd cried more in the past 24 hours than she had in years. When can I start? How about tomorrow? That night, Maya carried her duffel bag up the narrow stairs to the apartment. It was small, like Patricia said, but it had a bed. A real bed with clean sheets. It had a lock on the door. It had a window that looked out over the street. It was hers. She lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 24 hours ago, she'd been on a park bench with $5 and no hope. Now she had a home, a job, money in a bank account she didn't even have access to yet but knew was real. And most importantly, she had Grace, a tiny baby who'd grabbed onto her finger and didn't let go. Maya closed her eyes and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, the bookstore job, turned out to be exactly what Maya needed. Patricia was patient and kind, teaching her how to use the register, how to help customers find books, how to organize the shelves by category. Maya loved being surrounded by stories. She'd always loved reading back when she had time for it. Now she was living inside a whole building full of stories. Every afternoon during her lunch break, Maya would walk to the hospital to visit Grace. It became the part of her day she looked forward to most. She'd sit by the incubator and talk to the baby about everything and nothing, about the customers who came into the bookstore, about the books she was reading, about the apartment and how it had an actual bathtub which felt like the height of luxury. You should see it, Grace, she'd whisper. The tub is old and the paint is chipping, but when you fill it with hot water, it's like heaven. I took a bath yesterday that lasted an hour. A whole hour. I'm pretty sure I used up all the hot water in the building." The nurses started to recognize her. They'd smile when she came in and give her updates before she even asked. Grace was getting stronger every day. She'd gained 3 ounces. She was off the oxygen. Her color was good. Each piece of good news made Maya's heart soar. 2 weeks after starting at the bookstore, Maya was shelving books when Patricia called her to the front. A woman in a professional pantsuit was standing there with a briefcase. "Maya, this is Catherine Winters. She's a social worker with Child Protective Services." Maya's stomach dropped. She knew what this meant. They were here about Grace. Catherine shook her hand warmly. "I've been wanting to meet you. The nurses at the hospital say you visit every day. Grace is very lucky you found her when you did." They sat down at the small table Patricia kept in the back for her lunch breaks. Catherine pulled out a folder. "I want to talk to you about Grace's situation. Her birth mother has relinquished her rights. The family isn't willing to take the baby. We're looking for a foster placement." Maya's heart was pounding. "What does that mean?" "Where will she go? We have a list of licensed foster families. We're looking for the right match. It could take a few weeks to find the perfect home. But she's okay there? At the hospital?" "For now, yes. But Maya, I wanted to ask you something." Catherine leaned forward. "The nurses tell me Grace responds to you differently than others. She calms down when you talk. She seems to know your voice. The bond you two have formed, it's special." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "Have you ever considered becoming a foster parent?" The question hit Maya like a physical blow. "Me? I'm only 23. I just got this job." "I barely have anything." "You have more than you think," Catherine said gently. "You have a stable job now. You have housing. You have a good heart and clearly love this baby. The process isn't easy. You'd need to get licensed, take classes, pass background checks and home inspections. But if you're interested, I'd be willing to help you through it." After Catherine left, Maya couldn't focus on work. Patricia noticed and sent her upstairs to rest. Maya lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Be Grace's foster mom? It seemed impossible. She didn't know anything about babies.
She'd never had a real family herself.
How could she possibly give that to someone else? But then she thought about Grace lying in that incubator, about how tiny and vulnerable she was, about how she'd been left in an alley like garbage. Grace deserved better than that. She deserved someone who would fight for her, someone who understood what it felt like to be unwanted. Maya pulled out her phone and called Catherine back before she could talk herself out of it. "I want to do it. I want to try." The next few months were the hardest work Maya had ever done. She took online classes about child development, about trauma, about what foster kids needed. She went to workshops on weekends. She had inspections of her apartment, making sure it was safe for a baby. Patricia helped her buy a crib, a changing table, tiny clothes, bottles, diapers. The GoFundMe money paid for all of it and still left plenty for savings. Through it all, Maya visited Grace every single day. She watched the baby grow stronger, watched her start to focus her eyes, watched her begin to smile. The nurses taught Maya how to feed her, how to burp her, how to change a diaper. They were patient with her 1,000 questions. "You're a natural," one nurse told her. "Grace is lucky to have you." "I'm the lucky one," Maya said, and she meant it. Officer Rodriguez checked in on her regularly. He'd become something like a friend. He brought her coffee sometimes, and they'd sit in the hospital cafeteria and talk. "You know what I think?" he said one day. "I think you and Grace found each other exactly when you both needed it most. That wasn't an accident." Maya wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe there was some bigger plan, some reason she'd walked down that specific alley on that specific night. But mostly she just felt grateful. Grateful she hadn't kept walking. Grateful she'd listened to that cry. 4 months after finding Grace, Maya got a call from Catherine. "Your license came through. You're officially a foster parent. If you're ready, Grace can come home with you next week." Maya sat down hard. "Next week? Really? Really? Are you ready?" Was she ready? She had no idea. She was terrified, but she also couldn't imagine not bringing Grace home. "Yes, I'm ready." The day Maya brought Grace home from the hospital, it felt like a parade. The nurses all came out to say goodbye. They decorated the tiny room with balloons and made a banner that said, "Good luck, Grace." They'd all fallen in love with the baby over these months. Patricia had decorated the bookstore with welcome home signs. When Maya walked in carrying Grace in a car seat, Patricia burst into tears. "Let me hold her. Let me hold this precious girl." Maya carried Grace upstairs to the apartment. The crib was set up in the corner. The changing table was stocked with diapers. She'd read 17 books about taking care of babies. She had the pediatrician's number memorized. She'd done everything she could to prepare. But that first night, when Grace woke up crying at 2 in the morning, Maya was completely lost. She tried everything. Changed her diaper, tried to feed her, walked her around the room, sang to her. Nothing worked. Grace just kept crying. Maya felt panic rising. What if she couldn't do this? What if she wasn't enough? She sat down in the rocking chair with Grace and started crying too. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the baby. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. I don't want to mess you up." And then something amazing happened. Grace stopped crying. She looked up at Maya with those big eyes, and she smiled. Maybe it was gas. The book said babies didn't really smile this early, but it looked like a smile to Maya. It looked like Grace was saying, "We're going to figure this out together." Maya held her closer and kept rocking. She sang a lullaby she half remembered from somewhere. Her voice was shaky and off-key, but Grace didn't care. The baby's eyes started to droop. Within minutes, she was asleep. Maya didn't put her back in the crib. She just sat there rocking, holding this tiny miracle. She thought about that night in the alley, how cold Grace had been, how close they'd come to losing her. And now here she was, warm and fed and safe. Here they both were. The next few weeks were exhausting. Grace woke up every 3 hours. Maya was running on coffee and determination. Patricia was understanding, letting her bring Grace to work. The baby would sleep in a bassinet behind the counter while Maya helped customers. People loved it. They'd come in just to see the baby. "Is this the one you saved?" they'd ask. When Maya nodded, they'd shake their heads in wonder. Some of them cried. One older woman bought $200 worth of books and said, "This is for both of you, for being brave." Maya started to understand something. Grace hadn't just given her a purpose. She'd given her a community. People she'd never met before stopped by the bookstore to check on them, brought gifts, offered help. The flower shop next door gave her free flowers every week. The coffee shop always slipped her extra pastries. "For the baby," they'd say with a wink. One Saturday morning, Maya was pushing Grace in a stroller through the park, the same park where she'd sat on that bench months ago with $5 and no hope. She stopped at that same bench and sat down. Grace was awake, looking around at the trees and sky. "You see that bench?" Maya said to Grace, even though the baby couldn't understand. "That's where I hit rock bottom. That's where I thought I had nothing left. I was wrong, though. I had one more thing to give. I had the strength to help you, and you helped me right back. You gave me everything." A woman jogging past stopped. "Excuse me, are you the one who found the baby in the alley?" Maya nodded, a little embarrassed. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to say thank you. My daughter was considering giving up her baby for adoption. She was scared, thought she couldn't do it alone. Then she saw your story on the news. It inspired her to keep trying. She's doing great now. You gave her hope." After the woman jogged away, Maya looked down at Grace. The baby was watching her with those serious eyes. "Did you hear that, Grace? We're giving people hope. Little old us." Grace made a gurgling sound that might have been agreement. Maya pushed the stroller home slowly, taking in the warm afternoon sun. She thought about Catherine's last visit when she'd said, "You know this is just foster care, right? The goal is always reunification or adoption by relatives. There's no guarantee you'll get to keep her." Maya knew that. She knew Grace might not be hers forever. But right now, in this moment, they had each other. And that was enough. That was everything. 6 months passed in a blur of sleepless nights, first smiles, and tiny milestones. Grace was growing fast. She could hold her head up now. She laughed at everything. She loved books, which made Patricia endlessly happy. "She's going to be a reader," Patricia would say, showing Grace colorful picture books while Maya rang up customers. Life had found a rhythm. Maya worked at the bookstore during the day while Grace napped in the back or played on a blanket surrounded by board books. In the evenings, they'd go upstairs and Maya would cook simple dinners, while Grace sat in her high chair making a mess with whatever soft food Maya gave her. The apartment that had felt too small at first now felt like home. Their home, but there was always a shadow hanging over them. Grace was still technically in foster care. Maya had learned not to think too much about it. She just focused on each day, loving this little girl with everything she had. Then Catherine called. "Maya, we need to talk. Can I come by tomorrow?" The tone in her voice made Maya's stomach drop. She barely slept that night. She kept checking on Grace, watching her sleep, memorizing every detail. The way her little fists curled up by her face, the soft sound of her breathing, the smell of her baby shampoo. Catherine arrived the next afternoon. She sat at the small kitchen table while Maya made tea with shaking hands. Grace was napping in her crib. "I'm just going to say it straight," Catherine started. "Grace's biological mother has been in therapy. She's been working really hard. Her family has come around and they want to meet the baby." Maya felt like she'd been punched. They want her back? They want to meet her. That's the first step. "Maya, I know this is hard, but you knew when you signed up for foster care that the goal is always family reunification when possible." "She left Grace in an alley," Maya said, her voice breaking. "In a box. Like trash." "She was 16 and terrified," Catherine said gently. "She made a terrible choice. But she's getting help now. She wants to do better. We have to give her that chance." Maya put her head in her hands. She knew Catherine was right. She'd learned in all those classes that foster care was supposed to be temporary, that birth families should be supported and given chances. But knowing it and living it were two different things. Grace was her daughter now. Hers. "What happens next?" Maya asked. "There will be visits. Supervised at first. Then we'll see how it goes. I won't lie to you, Maya, this could go either way. But you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that Grace might be reunified with her birth family." After Catherine left, Maya sat on the floor next to Grace's crib and cried. She cried harder than she had in years. All those months ago when she'd found Grace, she thought she was saving the baby. She had no idea that Grace would save her right back. That this tiny human would give her a reason to wake up every morning. A reason to try. A reason to believe she could be more than what she'd come from. The first visit happened a week later. Maya brought Grace to a supervised visitation center. The birth mother was there with her own mother. The girl was young, barely 17 now. She looked terrified. Maya walked in carrying Grace and everything in her wanted to run back out. But she made herself stay. Made herself hand Grace over to this stranger who was biologically her mother. Grace started to cry immediately, reaching back for Maya. It took everything Maya had not to snatch her back. The visit lasted an hour. Maya sat in a waiting room watching the clock, feeling like her heart was being ripped out. When they brought Grace back, the baby was crying. She practically launched herself into Maya's arms. On the drive home, Maya held Grace tight. "I've got you," she whispered. "I've got you." The visits continued every week, sometimes twice a week. Each one was torture, but Maya noticed something. The birth mother was trying. She was learning how to hold Grace properly, how to make her laugh. She asked questions about what Grace liked, what her schedule was. She was fighting for her daughter. Maya wanted to hate her. It would be easier to hate her. But she couldn't, because she understood what it felt like to be young and scared and alone. She understood making bad choices out of desperation. If things had gone differently, if life had been harder, Maya could have been that girl. 3 months into the visits, Catherine called another meeting. The birth mother's family wants to move forward with reunification. They have a stable home. The mother is in school and therapy. They're asking for overnight visits to start. Maya felt the room spin. "Overnight? I know. But Maya, I need you to hear this. The birth mother came to me yesterday. She said she wants to talk to you. Will you meet with her?" Maya almost said no. What could they possibly have to say to each other? But something made her agree. They met at a coffee shop. Just the two of them. The birth mother's name was Rebecca. She looked so young sitting across the table, twisting a napkin in her hands. "Thank you for meeting me," Rebecca said quietly. "I know you probably hate me." "I don't hate you," Maya said and realized it was true. What you did that night, finding Grace, saving her. I think about it every day. You gave her something I couldn't. You gave her love when she needed it most. Maya felt tears starting. "She's easy to love. I was so scared," Rebecca said. "My family was so angry when they found out I was pregnant. My boyfriend left. I didn't know what to do. I thought she'd be better off without me. But that was wrong, so wrong. Leaving her there was the biggest mistake of my life. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Rebecca said something Maya wasn't expecting. You're her mom too, you know. You're the one who's been there. The one who knows how she likes to be rocked. What songs calm her down. How she hates peas but loves sweet potatoes. I don't know any of that. I missed all of it. I can teach you, Maya heard herself say. If you want. Rebecca looked up, eyes wide. You would do that? For Grace, yes. Over the next month, something unexpected happened. Maya and Rebecca started talking. Really talking. Rebecca would come to the bookstore during visiting hours and Maya would show her things. How Grace liked to be bounced when she got fussy. How she loved being read to even though she couldn't understand the words yet. How she always woke up happy, smiling at the world. Rebecca was a good student. She was patient with Grace, gentle. Maya could see how hard she was trying. And seeing Grace with her birth mother, watching them build their own bond, it was painful but also beautiful. Patricia noticed the change in Maya. You're helping her, she said one day. That's incredibly generous. I'm helping Grace, Maya corrected. She deserves to know her birth mother, and her birth mother deserves a chance to be better. But the overnight visit still terrified Maya. The first night Grace stayed with Rebecca's family, Maya didn't sleep at all. She cleaned the apartment 3 times. Reorganized the bookstore inventory. Stayed up until 4 a.m. just staring at the empty crib. When she picked Grace up the next morning, the baby was fine. Happy even. Rebecca's mother had clearly been attentive. Grace was clean and fed and smiling. That should have made Maya happy. Instead, it made her realize that Grace didn't need her the way she thought. Grace would be okay either way. That night, Maya called Catherine. I think I need to let her go. If Rebecca's ready, if they can give her a good home, I think I need to step back. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. That's a very mature decision, Maya, but are you sure? We could fight for you to keep her. You have rights as a foster parent. I don't want to fight. I want what's best for Grace. And maybe that's being with her birth family. Rebecca's changed. I can see it. She's ready to be a mom. But then Catherine said something that changed everything. Rebecca came to see me yesterday. She has a proposal. She wants to know if you'd consider co-parenting. Maya almost dropped the phone. What? She said Grace needs both of you. That you're the one who saved her life and she could never repay that. She wants to share custody. You'd still be Grace's mom. They'd be Grace's family. Everyone works together. It was unprecedented, unusual. There would be lawyers involved, paperwork, court hearings. But it was possible. Maya thought about it for 3 days. She prayed, though she wasn't sure she believed in God. She talked to Patricia, who cried and said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever heard. She talked to Officer Rodriguez, who said Maya had the biggest heart of anyone he'd ever met. Finally, she called Rebecca. Let's try it. Let's try to give Grace what neither of us had growing up. Let's give her a family. The court hearing was 6 months later. Maya stood in front of a judge, holding 9-month-old Grace with Rebecca standing beside her. The judge looked at the unique arrangement they were proposing. Shared custody between a foster parent and the birth family. It wasn't traditional, but nothing about their story was traditional. I've read all the reports, the judge said. I've seen the recommendations from the social workers. What impresses me most is the maturity and love demonstrated by everyone involved. Ms. Henderson, you saved this child's life and gave her stability when she needed it most. Ms. Torres, you've worked incredibly hard to become the mother your daughter deserves, and together you're creating something special. The judge granted the shared custody arrangement. The courtroom erupted in applause. Patricia was crying. Officer Rodriguez was grinning. Catherine was nodding like she'd known all along it would work out. Maya looked down at Grace, who was trying to grab the judge's gavel. This perfect, beautiful little girl who'd changed everything. Grace had been left with nothing in a cold alley. Maya had found her with nothing but a willingness to help. And somehow together, they'd built everything. That night, Maya sat in the rocking chair in her apartment with Grace sleeping on her chest. Rebecca would pick her up tomorrow for the weekend. Then Grace would come back. They'd switch back and forth, sharing holidays and birthdays and all the little moments in between. It wouldn't always be easy, but they'd figure it out. Maya thought back to that night 6 months ago when she'd been sitting on a park bench, believing she had nothing to offer the world. She'd been so wrong. She'd had exactly what was needed at exactly the right moment. She'd had compassion, courage, love. Grace stirred in her sleep and made a small sound. Maya kissed the top of her head. "We did it, baby girl," she whispered. "We made a family. A weird, complicated, unconventional family, but a family." Outside the window, the city lights twinkled. Somewhere out there, another person was probably sitting on a bench thinking they had nothing, thinking their life was over, thinking they didn't matter. Maya wished she could tell them what she'd learned, that sometimes the smallest choice, the simple decision to not walk away, can change everything. That rock bottom isn't the end, that having nothing doesn't mean you are nothing. She wished she could tell them that even in your darkest moment, you might be exactly where you need to be, that the person you save might end up saving you right back. But mostly she wished she could tell them to keep going, because you never know what miracle is waiting around the corner, what life-changing moment might be hiding in an alley, what tiny baby might grab your finger and never let go. Grace sighed in her sleep, content and safe and loved. Maya closed her eyes and rocked gently, holding on to everything she'd gained by stopping to help someone who had nothing, just like her.